Welcome to Cybersecurity Diaries by StationX. In this episode, we're diving into everything you need to know to successfully pass the OSCP certification. Whether you're just starting your journey or fine-tuning your final preparations, we've got you the insights and strategies to help you succeed in this show. Let's just say what OSCP is for anyone that may not know. So it's the OffSec Certified Professional, so OSCP. And it's a hacking certification. And it's considered to be one of the most sought after certifications because it's fairly highly regarded by industry professionals, and it does appear on a lot of job ads as well. And to discuss the OSCP with me, I've got Sean, who's also doing an amazing job at StationX, and he's heading up our hacking red team focus group. So thanks to Sean for that. So Sean, hello. And why don't you tell the audience a little bit about your background and what you've been up to? Because Sean's doing some interesting stuff at the moment. I shouldn't hog the mic, should I really?
No, you can hear me okay?
Yes, can hear you. Well, actually, if you can hear Sean, then let us know. It's always good. Nathan is working hard to produce energy to keep. I'm walking in order to power this webinar. If I stop walking, the webinar ends.
That's fantastic.
So yeah, Sean,
let's go. So so I've been in technology related fields since the mid 90s. I started off just pulling low voltage cable. Worked for a few big companies, Motorola. Got very familiar with infrastructure, and then I worked for a company called Nortel and learned how to do voice systems. Convergence happened late 90s, and I had to learn data because the convergence idea of a switch and what I was working on was called a switch, and they weren't even the same thing. So I had to learn basic data routing, things like that. And kind of over all of that stuff, I noticed that there was a common theme. A lot of this stuff had to have security, and I just kind of started dabbling in it. Plus, as I was growing up, I always built things, broke them to try to fix them, and really just got into that kind of that hobby. And it was just I don't know, kind of just a natural progression the way that technology in my life unfolded. And so I discovered the security world was right up in line with just everything that I wanted to do. And so I started focusing on that. 2010, I really narrowed the focus, took a defense contracting position, and I was required to get the Security Plus certification. Well, that just kind of opened the world of even more security certifications and that whole, kind of defense industry stuff. And while I was there, I just, started messing around in learning more about security and discovered an operating system called Backtrack, which is what it was back in the day. If anyone remembers. Yeah,
I remember that.
Yeah. So
anyone, question for the audience. So sorry to interrupt. Anyone know what Backtrack is called now? First person to answer doesn't get a prize. Callie, yeah, well done.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, go on. That shows how old some of you guys are.
Yeah, and so messing around with Backtrack, I really didn't understand the operating system. I just knew, man, there's a lot of cool toys on here, and I kind of joke around. I was like, script kiddie mode activated. And I just started launching, Metasploit and Armitage and all the things that you could do in that operating system without really understanding what it was I was doing. And so I would mess around and, just kind of try to figure out. And I'm like, this isn't, none of the things you see in the movies are happening. I'm using these hacking things and nothing's getting hacked. And then I discovered the Certified Ethical Hacker. I went to a boot camp. And while I was in that boot camp, part of the CEH at the end of that boot camp, they offered the certified pen tester through the IACRB organization. And they basically just gave me a disk and said, here you go. This is a couple of virtual machines. You have about 3 months to break into these and figure out, how to get root on these. And so I took about 89 days. And on the 89th day, I wrote the report and submitted it. And then about 3 weeks later, I got this certificate in the mail. My wife calls me up. She's giggling. And I was like, what are you laughing at? Because she just couldn't catch her breath. And she goes, I don't know if this is a joke or not, but you just got a certificate in the mail and it says certified penetration tester. And I was like, you're a child. What are you in middle school? Like, and so, but that was my first certification. And from there, I kind of really was like, okay, there's something to all of this actual pen testing. Backtrack went through its iterations, became Kali, and I just really started to understand more about that. And as I was researching, a certified ethical hacker, Sec Plus, all the different certifications that were out there at the time, because the practical network pen testing didn't exist, and a lot of these modern ones that we have now, those didn't exist. And so I just was like, what is this OSCP? So I started researching it, and one day I was like, all right, I'm going to spend the money. And then while I was taking that, I came across this incredible series of videos from this British guy, and this guy had this incredible methodology of training and instructing. And I did the labs in his courses, and I was like, wow, that just opened my eyes. And I was like, thank you, Nathan House. Like, you just like enhanced my security career. And so with that skill, I understood way more about networking than I ever did. I understood way more about operating systems than I ever did. I understood way more about hacking and what hackers do, like how to harden your systems and all that stuff. And that understanding just kind of made the transition to Hack the Box, and Try Hack Me wasn't around yet, but the Proving Grounds and all, Vuln Hub and all these different things. And so yeah, that was just kind of where it all began.
That's how you got here. So OSCP, what inspired you to consider to take the OSCP?
Yeah. So as I was considering, do I keep going with the CompTIA search? Do I, looking at kind of the value in the industry, CCNA, I have some routing and switching background. So I was like, do I focus on Cisco? And as I was really deciding my career is going to be in cyber, I looked at what the OSCP was. And when I understood, if you just do a search on OSCP, there are things out there that kind of explain what the OSCP is. As an OSCP, we're not allowed to give away all the goodies about the OSCP, but people can talk about it. But I understood that this isn't just a written exam. This is not even a written exam, period. This is an exam that's going to test my skills as a hacker, and it's pass fail, plain and simple. There's no, whatever. And so I was like, they're kind of, the way it was explained to me was, okay, you call yourself a hacker. Here's a certain number of machines. You have 24 hours to break into them. And after that 24 hours, you have another 24 hours to write a report and tell us how you did it. And to me, that wasn't just a brain dump. That wasn't just, memorize Q&A, multiple choice. That was, I have to prove I know what I'm doing. So, and
let's just make that clear for people that don't understand. So the OSCP is not an exam where you write the answers. It's not where you have A, B, C, D. So for those that aren't aware, can you explain how the OSCP is taken?
Yeah. So when you register, you would take the Pen 200 course, and the Pen 200 course is going to go over all these instructional modules and things like that. They're not going to give you any answers. They're going to give you foundations and fundamentals, and those foundations and fundamentals, you have to go out and improve them and hone them. When you're ready, at the end of, if you've taken the 90-day course with labs, at the end of that 90 days, you schedule your exam, you get the email, and then when that email comes, it says, okay, this is your testing date. You sit down in front of your computer, you validate in front of the camera, show, ID, prove who you are, proctored, all this stuff now. It wasn't proctored before, but it's proctored now for sure. And so the clock starts, and you have 24 hours. And they have given you a very specific number of machines, and each machine is worth a certain number of points. Once you break into, discover a low priv, you get points. You take that low priv and elevate, you get root, you get the full points for that box. And so each machine has a point scale based on whether you just gained low priv access or you gained full root on it. And so once you do that, just like any pen tester, you're doing screen grabs, you're enumerating, you're capturing everything about the machine. You take all these notes and all this stuff, and then you put this into your report, your pen testing report. When your 24 hours is up, it's actually 23 hours and 59 minutes. When that clock stops, you have another 24 hours to finalize your report, put it into their format. They just there's a lot of people that use Markdown and they use their own version, but they give you a template to submit your report. And once you just use that template, it kind of makes it foolproof. Submit it, and within 72 hours, you get the results, whether you passed or failed. So,
right. So they manually assess the report, you believe?
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So
And
the idea is that it's a simulation of a penetration test, and you're producing the report at the end, and therefore you've got to have discovered enough of the vulnerabilities in order for them to consider that you've successfully passed. So not like the CEH, or rather the traditional CEH, which is a tick box, but there is actually another CEH practical, which is more like that. Yeah. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So there's a restriction on what OSCPs can actually say about the OSCP, isn't there? So what is it we're not allowed to ask?
Yeah.
Or rather, what are the restrictions?
So you sign an NDA, and basically under kind of penalty of revocation of your certification, you cannot share screenshots of any exam, whether it's a retired or current. You cannot share any machines or information or those parts and pieces of the exam period. You can't disclose how many machines that you're being tested on, and you can't disclose essentially the content of, generally speaking, right? We can say, yeah, you're going to be tested on enumerating. You're going to be your skills are going to be tested on discovering potentially web vulnerabilities, using tools like burp. All of the requirements of the OSCP that are publicly available are what we are allowed to talk about. So when you go look, what is the OSCP require? You'll find out you're not going to be allowed to use tools like SQL map, right? You're going to have to manually enumerate SQL. Tools like Active Directory tools. Some of those tools are allowed, some of those tools are not. And they obviously your screen is being recorded, and you're being proctored, you're being monitored. And so if they see any kind of funny business using tools or things that are part of the automated process, you're only allowed to use, let's see if I can say it, the Metasploit framework. There's a very limited amount of Metasploit framework that you can use. And that's about all I can say on that. But you can use it. But once you make that decision is final. There are no oops, I meant to, or nothing like that. So, yeah.
Right. Okay. So with that in mind, and a lot of people here are going to be sort of thinking whether or not the OSCP is even something that they should consider. I guess a lot of people here are interested in hacking, but still a lot of people will be in cybersecurity, but not necessarily thinking that hacking is where they're going to go. So what's involved, do you think, in the decision as to whether or not to go down the OSCP route? Because it is quite expensive relatively, and it's a big time investment to actually be able to pass. So who do you think, who would you say should consider the OSCP?
Yeah. So with my background in structured cabling, voice and VoIP, TDM and SIP and all of that, background in data, routing, switching, network, all of that, background as a network defender, as well as a red teamer. I love red teaming more than anything else. But with that background, understanding all of the methodologies and models and ways a system or infrastructure can be attacked really helped make me a better solution architect, right? So my full-time life, I don't do a lot of full-time pen testing anymore. I run my own company. I have expert pen testers now that work for me, that do these things. Now I can have conversations with my senior pen testers and my junior pen testers and things like that. And they know I know what I'm talking about because, I have the credentials to back it up. But anybody that wants to really understand that full scope, just like they would have taken all 4 of your modules, right, to go from 0 to hero, in those modules that you created, you get this wider, greater depth of knowledge and understanding of just how IT infrastructure systems work, from the network pen testing to application pen testing to web pen testing. So really, it boils down to, you know, number one, do you want the street cred? Like, you know, OSCP, people know you know what you're talking about. That by itself is like when people are like, oh yeah, he's OSCP, like he's not a script kiddie, he's not fake, he's like really proven it. If you want to have that kind of, dust your shoulder off credential, this is a great one. The other ones that are coming along, the practical network pen testing, PNPT, those are also getting a lot of recognition, and there's probably a different lecture or a webinar about those. But this is a widely recognized kind of gold standard for hackers. And so if you want that, there is a cost associated with it. One of my friends asked me one time when I was discussing, do I do this? Do I not do this? And they said, how many of those $10 courses do you have just kind of stacked up? I use them for my continuing educations because Certified Ethical Hacker, you need continuing education credits. Sec Plus, you need continuing education credits. And I use Station X for all my CEUs. And so I have the whole VIP library. I pay for the whole thing, and I keep the annual membership going because I want access to keep those trainings. Those cost me $10. How many of those do I have that I have not finished? Hundreds, because they're $10 courses and I can get them when I need them and use them and complete them when I need them for the curriculum. For the OSCP, this is something that cost me a lot of money, and there was no way that I was not going to, sorry, one second. There was no way, can you hear me?
Yep.
Turn on the right one. There was no way that I was not going to finish that course. And so the work and effort that I put in, it actually took me on my fourth try to get the OSCP. So I failed the first time, got angry, rescheduled it for 30 days later, did it again, failed even worse than I failed the first time because I really didn't prepare. I just thought I could, I thought I would get the same test. I thought I would get the same thing and just redo it all. Little did I know. Third time, I prepared even more, but at that point, my oldest son had passed away. I had actually went blind in my left eye as well. And so while I'm studying for this third exam, I lost my son, I lost my vision, and so many things that just, I just wanted to give up. I wanted to, stop. And so having all of that go through, I went through on the fourth time, and then I went through and passed it. So even though it cost me money, to me, it's worth it. It was 100% worth the value. So.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to add the OSCP, if you're in your early stages, OSCP would be something that you would do later on. It is something I generally recommend if you're going down the offensive route. And it is something that I would recommend even if you're not going down the offensive route, but you're later on in your career. So it can help you sort of tune the engine so you understand the offensive side of things.
Yeah.
But it would be a mistake to take the OSCP if you are not going down the offensive route and your sort of early career.
Yeah, for sure.
You need to get the focus of what you're doing done first. So if you're going down like the SOC route or malware analyst or anything like that, you need to focus on your core. This will be core if you're a penetration tester. Let's actually talk about the areas that it covers or the syllabus. So I think I've actually got let me see if I can share my screen here. So yeah, can you see my screen there?
I can.
Yeah, so this is what it's got as the syllabus. So what would you describe it as in terms of penetration testing? So what I mean by that is it more infrastructure, less web app, no mobile? But what are we really covering in terms of penetration testing here?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, actually. So I did not see or cover in the curriculum mobile pen testing. We did a web, we did network, we did operating system, application, stuff like that. Back before they changed to the Active Directory portion, they updated the OSCP to include Active Directory takeover, domain controller takeover. They used to have to do a buffer overflow, and everybody was working on creating the buffer overflow and things like that. Well, technology has since made buffer overflow attacks a little more difficult and less likely to find in the wild. And so they moved on from just doing buffer overflows to, I know, right? Moved on to doing Active Directory takeovers, Kerber roasting, things like that. So that is more what you'll find.
Yeah. So with that in mind, and obviously people are going to want to learn these various, I guess, areas of penetration testing. What would be your general recommendations for study material and resources, and any particular area that you think is good that you should have under your belt before you even attempt to sign up?
Yeah. So there's some really great resources out there on Windows enumerating and Linux enumerating, because as a pen tester, one of the most important skills you will need is the ability to enumerate, to understand what is on a machine, how to find things that are important, and how to ignore things that are just common. You see it in every machine, you see it everywhere. And some people get, when they run a dir or an ls, they see things and they're like, "Ooh, what is this?" Well, if you don't know the Linux operating system, when you do an ls tac al, you see things and you're like, "Oh, what is this?" Now you're spending a lot of time in directories that are really dead directories or pointless directories or things that you're not going to have. If you don't understand the file permissions of the Linux directory structure, you're going to be wasting time digging through things that you may only have read-only privileges to. And so you learn to understand how to look for the things that are kind of weaknesses and not waste your time in the rabbit holes. Now, there are rabbit holes in pretty much every kind of, whether it's a pen test or not. If you're enumerating something, you're going to find these time wasters, and you're going to, because it may be there as a honeypot, or maybe there is something to distract you from what's really there. And so you have to kind of understand and discern, having that ability to enumerate. Infamiliarity with Windows was one of the biggest problems I had. Even though I run a Windows operating system, I didn't know Windows admin stuff, the PowerShell commands and things like that. That was kind of a struggle for me. So I had to spend more time understanding Windows command and admin things as I prepared for my fourth attempt. There's a few of those study guides out there.
So that's interesting. You see, because this is part of why we have our stage 1, 2, and 3, which are the building blocks. So you can see here, Sean's not even talking about hacking stuff here. This is the fundamentals of OS, Windows, Linux. So all of those things, we consider sort of stage 1, 2. You need those building blocks, and you need to be able to navigate around those environments and understand them, and understand when they look different, before you even get to the pen testing stuff.
Yeah, the pen testing part is actually the easiest part when you figure out what it is you're going after, because of things like the exploit database and VulnHub and all these places where you can just go read about a CVE. And most of these things, with some exception, are just publicly available. The written exploits, the security researchers, they put these things on ExploitDB. Now, for safety reasons, they modify the code so that a script kiddie can't grab it and just launch an attack if they find something like that. But once you find what it is that's vulnerable, the hacking part is super easy, really. It's almost trivial.
What would you recommend in terms of tools that you should be familiar with?
Yeah, be really good with Bash. Be good with Python. You don't have to be I'm not a coder, so my background was in cabling, voice, routing and switching. So I understood command line stuff, but I'm not a Python coder. I just learned some things about Python. I could read a Python program and debug it and find, where the errors are. I'm not a Visual Basic or a C++, but I can understand the code and read it. So you don't have to be an expert at coding. I can't code JavaScript at all, but I can read it and debug it and figure out when it doesn't work, because I got familiar with it, right? Understanding, again, the Windows operating system and the kind of the registry, the admin stuff, the portions, things like that, what net user does, how those Windows tools, NSLOOKUP, and some of those types of things, like the admin commands that you can just enumerate your box with. Yeah, just the basic tools, really.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So, how important do you think is doing practical exercises before you tackle the OSCP?
That really helped. So in the labs, they give you just a bunch of different machines. I think there's almost 100 and something machines that you can work on in the labs. They're all varying degrees of vulnerable. Some, they're much more difficult right out of the box, and they have dependencies. So you may have to have solved, 2 or 3 other machines before you got all the pieces of the puzzle necessary to even begin breaking into this machine in the lab environment. Because if it's like you walk into a corporate environment, right? You have an IT admin that works over here, but then you have your marketing department, your sales department. The sales department is careless with their passwords. They store them in an Excel spreadsheet or something like that. You may initially gain access to that sales department, spreadsheet, but you can't do anything with it because nothing on that sales department spreadsheet is applicable. But 4 machines over, you find, the usernames or something that gives you like a light bulb, and you're like, wait a minute, that's what these were all. Or you do credential stuffing and stick them in a dictionary or a script that you're going to run an attack against. And so it helps you think less like, blinders, and more just linearly, and kind of thinking about the entire security landscape. And so, it's not just break into an SSH terminal and, sudo blah, blah, blah. It's, it takes some kind of creative thinking, and their try harder methodology gets frustrating when you ask somebody for help in the Discord or whatever. And they're like, yeah, try harder. And you're like, oh, come on, just give me a real answer. But when that comes on and you're like, oh, and you actually do try harder, you think more. That's really what they're telling you to do. Think more, try to take a higher, elevated view of it. So.
Yeah, that reminds me, actually, when people say, oh, on this course, this tool, it's changed to the version, 1 point something. And now what it says in the course is not, not quite the same. I say to them, look, if this is a problem to you, then forget about cybersecurity, forget about hacking, because the entire experience is about things not working. Yeah. And you've got to figure out the solutions. You've got to try harder to do it. And that is penetration testing. There's nobody there holding your hand. You've got to think of the solutions. Yeah. So if a person is struggling because a version of software has changed or something slightly different, then this game is not for you. I always know, and I always say that to people plainly. And but that's the way it is. On the OSCP, what would you say you spent most of your time doing?
Banging my head off.
Being angry. Playing with fidget spinners.
Yeah, exactly. Listening to music and headphones and just, focusing, ping sweeping. I did a lot of Nmap. So your Nmap cheat sheet, that was like, a doctrine to me, because I was like, I need all these shortcuts and I need them handy. I need to be able to just understand how to gather ports, how to take the output from an Nmap, dump it into something usable, and file structure, creating organized notes that I could go back to that were meaningful. Because as I moved down a rabbit hole and forgot all about it, if I didn't have those meaningful notes, I would just forget and what it was. So I spent a lot of time really trying to develop my methodology. And then if I found something that was good, I took that command and I pasted it into a note document that was like, this is part of my pen testing methodology. This is my framework, and I will repeat these steps because this got me good results. So really understanding my enumeration methodology was what I spent the most time doing.
Yeah, a lot of time searching for stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
if you just do a Google search for Nmap cheat sheet, you'll find our Nmap cheat sheet. Yeah, you've got to be able to find stuff to exploit stuff. Yeah, and then you've got to tie it into a solid process, and that sort of brings me on to the question of, and because your organization is doing pen testing, how closely do you think it matches the real world of penetration testing?
Yeah. So just yesterday, my senior pen tester, we're working on an organization. We did a pen test for them last year. We wrote the report. We gave them the instructions. And I mean, we gave them very detailed instructions. Do this, do that, do this. And they hired us again to do a follow-on assessment and make sure. And this year, we had access to their internal network for 12 hours, and we own the domain again. And so it's very similar to what you're going to learn. Some people call it capture the flaggy, but ultimately the flag is just proof that you gained root. You would not be able to read that file without having root privileges. And once you can prove that you are root and you have system control, because these are virtual machines, there's not an organization, a domain controller. They're not running a SOC against their pen testing labs and their training environments. I mean, they are a little bit, but that's why they have to make it capture the flag so you can prove that you got the flag. But it is very much like an environment. Now, man-in-the-middle attacks you'll find them all over the place when you're doing an internal pen test. You may or may not find something like that in the PNPT or any of these other like ones because it could affect other students, and so they don't allow man-in-the-middle attacks. But in a real pen test, you can do man-in-the-middle attacks. You can do pineapple Wi-Fi takeovers, all that stuff. So
yeah, so I would add to this that this is an emulation of a sort of pen test that is more networky infrastructure. And a lot of work in pen testing is within web application. And this is not a focus on web application. So I would just sort of, obviously it does cover web app.
It does,
but
yeah. That's how we started too. We started with an external pen test. We were able to actually do some cross-site scripting vulnerabilities that we discovered. A lot of times, though, the way now things are hosted, a breach of their web content doesn't necessarily give you their internal architecture.
Yeah, it's pretty rare nowadays. Yeah,
but they still should be protected because you can gain access to the database, and that database may give you VPN creds, which then give you access to their internal network. So all pieces together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And cloud side of things. So obviously cloud is also popular as part of pen testing. Does it cover any of that, AWS and
the closest thing was the Azure, the AD environment that you would discover. So that's, and you'd see that in the labs. They kind of go.
That was an important addition, wasn't it? And it was sort of requested or moaned about for many years, wasn't it? That Active Directory really needed to be there.
Yeah, because once you're in an organization, domain controller, you get DC, you own the entire domain.
Yeah, definitely. So, do you think the exam has been useful for you in the end?
Yeah, so I actually reached out. I had a NAS drive that failed, and it had my student report on it, and I kind of was like proud of it. And the exam, it had all my notes and everything, and they're gone. I was not storing them on the cloud, just because if my exam were to get out, because it has a watermark, right? And there's non-repudiation steps they take. I would have lost it. So I was keeping it local storage only, and lost that drive and lost it all. But yeah, the exam, especially after, losing my son, losing my vision, persevering through probably the toughest period of my life. I'm a Army combat veteran myself, and have been all over the world and done some hard things. And there was a lot to this that was obviously the death of my son was catastrophic. He wanted to be a hacker just like me, and I remember this time he came to me and said, "Dad, I want to do what you do." So I took his laptop and I changed the administrator password and made his account a standard user and said, "There you go, break into it and come back to me." And for 3 months, he would come out and be like, "Dad, can I install this game?" And I'm like, "Yeah, get admin on your computer and you can do whatever you want." And he'd walk away with his head down. 3 months later, he comes out with his hands raised in the air, laptop over his head. He finally got his admin rights back. And so getting,
Right.
watching him do that and him wanting to do what I did, getting this certification, it was for my son, it was for Alex. And, that's where my company started from, his death and just all the stuff that goes in between that, go on. But it was so meaningful. So
Good. Yeah, that does sound amazing. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about what you're doing in your company and how that relates to hacking?
yeah. So after Alex died, I had to kind of obviously go through that grieving process. And a counselor, as he was helping me through all that, reached out to me and was like, "Hey, man, can you help? I have some other counselees. They're kind of struggling. They're really like addicted to pornography and just harmful things, and they're destroying their families. Can you help? Help them stop that stuff?" And I was like, "Man, absolutely. After all that the Lord has done for me through your organization, you can definitely just give them my number to call me." And so they called, they started reaching out. The families were reaching out, not the, clients, because he didn't want to violate their privacy, but they started reaching out and I started securing their stuff, just little things like content filters and parental control apps. Well, my wife says to me one day, do we have to wait until these guys are like addicts to this stuff? Can we help kids and like stop this before it, starts? And I was like, "Oh my gosh, like, yeah, we can absolutely do that." And so right there, the idea to help families just remove access to all kinds of harmful content, right? Not just pornography, but the scammer sites, the malicious sites, the park domain, just anything that doesn't, or a 9-year-old child doesn't need access to, right? And so that was the goal, was to just help people remove the easy access to that stuff. Now, a lot of these kids themselves are hackers. They're bypassing these content filters. The mom and dad have done the screen time locks and they've done this and they've done that. And so now these kids are kind of going up against a real hacker who's hardening their systems. And ultimately what has happened a few times is the children have gone out and purchased their own device that has no restrictions. So they're really wanting, if they're wanting to chase it, there's no filter, there's no, anything in the world that's going to stop that kind of, addict behavior or chasing behavior. And so we were focusing on just families and individuals and securing their just connected experience. Well, I realized small businesses and medium-sized businesses have the same struggle as families. Their budgets are constrained, their resources are constrained, and there's nobody really targeting those markets. And so I reached into the small business world and started providing the same pen testing, full service pen testing that I provide to the Department of Defense, Air Force, and enterprise corporations. I worked for AT&T, prior 2015, and was doing all kinds of security things for that major corporation. And so I was like, why can't I just do this for families and individuals and small businesses? So.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. So I'm sure we've got a lot of people here that are interested in perhaps working for themselves or being a consultant. That is an option for penetration testing. You get a bit of flexibility there on being a consultant. So if you had your big tip for the OSCP, what would be your best and biggest tip for, as a takeaway?
Yeah, the kind of joking, try harder,
Yeah.
tongue in cheek. But for real, look up OSCP like boxes. If you just do a Google search on boxes that are OSCP like, you'll find a ton of resources that are out there. Some of them you can download and bring into your own VirtualBox or VMware environment, and you can mess with them offline. TryHackMe has an incredible free lab. Hack the Box has the free lab. Obviously these free labs, they're really busy with other students. A lot of times they leave spoilers in the machines. They're just trolls. So if you can afford the paid subscription to one of those platforms, then try and use those platforms to get the real hands-on stuff. And then for sure, stay connected to this community, because you can ask questions in this community. You can ask questions to the red team, the blue team, the dark web groups, all these different groups. And people, I think I've loved being a part of this community as well, because when you ask a question in the Discord offset community, you get a lot of try harder, a lot of, almost elitist type answers. And it's really just not fair or cool, especially to the new cyber students, the cyber enthusiasts who are getting into this field. And, we want to mentor them and bring them into the cyber world and help their careers grow and launch and, be a part of something that's improving the security of the networks in the world, not restrict them. There's, so get in those communities and put the work in.
Yep. So, I encourage you to join Station X's focus group for hacking that Sean is running. We do have, let me share my screen. There's things you can look at even now, really. So we have a number of resources for OSCP. So, for example, we've got this, what to expect. So if you're at the beginning of your journey, this is going to cover cost, a lot of what we've talked about today in the syllabus. And I saw some questions about, how much should you know about networking and this, that, and the other. Well, you can see how Sean was talking about, we need to know Windows, need to know the fundamentals. So that's why we've got these recommendations for what you should. You can see here we've got Windows. So we do obviously have all of the courses and training and things to get those particular skills at Station X. And if you do a search on our blog, you can also see we've got, because obviously OSCP is not the only game in town. There's other certifications. So some of you here will probably be considering Certified Ethical Hacker, maybe CPEN. So you have a look at those as a comparison. We also have this article on the best ethical hacking certifications. These articles, by the way, are not something we put together in an hour. These can be sort of 5 hours, 10 hours of work that goes into these. We have researchers, we have a editor, we have a content manager, we have a writer. So these are not like some articles that are just sort of popped on there. So these are based on good research, and we recommend different certifications here within this offensive world, depending on what it is your outcome. And you can see we've even put CISP here, which technically isn't a pen testing cert, but it's here for a reason, and you can read that there. So plenty of resources at Station X. Also, if you check out our membership, you'll see that we've got some new stuff on there, which you might want to check out. And questions we could look at. I don't know, Sean, if you've seen any. There's quite a few. If you have any questions, people, then fire them off. Obviously, if you're part of our community already, then join Sean's focus group chat. If you're interested in penetration testing, let us know that you're doing the OSCP. There is a lot of people that are, ask. Don't be a lurker. If you're not already part of the community, then just go to Station X and you can join our accelerator. So, Sean, have you seen any questions?
Yeah, I have. Why is Nathan dancing?
Yeah, I have a condition by which means I can't stop moving. I'm on a treadmill.
Yeah,
I didn't let people know. But yeah, I mean, I think most people are aware that I'm on a treadmill most often.
I thought that was pretty good though. So Rob asks, did I do the 90-day training plus the cert test, and how many times did I have to try harder to get certified? So the first part of his question, I did the 90-day training, which I downloaded the PDFs for the curriculum, so I had that offline and the videos and all that, so I could go back and rewatch those. And it did take me 4 times to get my certification. So, and then my study time and commitment. So once I paid for the first part of the labs, I was in the labs almost every day for 90 days. Now, again, I have 4 kids, married, a full-time job and all that stuff. And in the evening, I would just block out an hour or two of focused study where everybody knew I was just going to be, working on that. There was times in that 90 days where I missed, maybe a week of training, but really I needed to stay focused on that 90 days. At the end of it, that's when, when I failed. I actually got really close. I only missed it by a couple of points, which was like devastating. But the failure taught me something that I didn't know about the exam. And so it's okay if you go in, you take it, you fail, because now you know what to expect. You know all of the little secrets of the OSCP exam, and it's not as intimidating. So my study time, I used Hack the Box, I used Try Hack Me, and I used a combination of my own lab environment to test things that I couldn't test in there. But a lot of the lab stuff was sufficient for testing. So. Do I have a course specifically tailored? Oh, this is probably for you, Nathan. Do you have a course specifically tailored? I think you answered that.
We do, yes. And also people are asking questions about, where to start, what you should do first. So this is sort of the ultimate problem. Like the answer is it depends on you, where you're starting, what you want to learn, what is your ultimate end goal.
Hello? Did we lose him? Did I lose? No voice. Yeah, we lost him. You guys can still hear me? All right, now that I've taken over Station X, welcome to Sean X.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, hey, we got your voice. Your video is just coming back.
Oh, okay. So I don't know what happened there. I think
Just
there's too many questions, perhaps.
That I was a hostile hacking takeover.
Yeah, it is. If I can get my camera back on. Okay, so I'm on, but a little bit darker for some reason. I don't know what that's all about. So the question was about where to start and such. The answer depends on where you are personally and where you want to go. So there is no single answer that we can give you around where you should be starting. So part of what we have in Station X is the delivery of that. So we take you as an individual and we provide mentorship and a roadmap. There's a roadmap app, and it tells you specifically what you should start on, all of the things that you should do, including like maybe this exam. We may not even recommend this exam. It really depends on because what we need to do is we need to focus on what's your ultimate outcome. And if your outcome is maybe just getting to penetration testing, it may be that OSCP is not suitable for you now, and it may be suitable for you later. So what you should be doing has to be prescribed to you as an individual. And there is a general path by which you need to learn the core knowledge, such as general IT stuff like that Sean mentioned, networking, of course. So the answer is it has to be individual, and that's what we provide on the accelerator. So if you're interested in the accelerator, and obviously there's courses on there that teach you all the things within the syllabus of OSCP, then just go to Station X and check out the membership. If you're not already a member, if you are a member, then you probably already have a roadmap, and if you look at your roadmap, it'll point out what you should be doing before OSCP.
One of the greatest skills was understanding VLANs and network segmentation, because if you land in a 192.168.1 subnet and you discover a resource that is part of another subnet and you don't understand what VLANs are and how to pivot through those networks or how to, get yourself into those networks, you'll be lost, and you'll just be stuck in that one subnet when there may be 14 other subnets behind that. So learning east-west movement through networks is very helpful. And actually, in your networking course that you have, you cover a lot of the understanding of VLANs and network segmentation and subnetting and IPv6 and all that stuff. So,
yes, we do. Yeah. Question for both Nathan and Sean: Would you please elaborate on a normal day for a penetration tester? So what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on that, Sean?
Yeah, so it depends on which pen tester you talk to. If you've ever seen the hacking movies, right? They sit down and they're like, oh, and I'm in. That's Hollywood. That's not.
It's
hacking.
Just like that. That's
just
it.
Like that. Exactly.
Yeah.
What it is a lot of scanning, a lot of enumeration, a lot of research, a lot of understanding of your environment, right? If you don't know what it is you're looking at and how many machines you can see within that subnet, and if there's anything beyond that, you spend a lot of time doing enumeration and understanding. The fun part, like I said, the hacking part, once you understand the vulnerabilities and the things that are potentially exploitable, that is actually really fast once you find it. The other part some people don't like, but other people love, is the report part, because now you've taken the mess, you've made it into an understandable, articulable format that executives are going to read, researchers are going to read, and IT staff members are going to read. And you take this document and you put it in a way that is going to reach the widest, broadest audience, and then you give them these recommendations. You're helping shut out the bad guys before these organizations get taken over. And so some people love that aspect of it, but that's basically what it is. If you're a red teamer, you kind of get to do some kind of cool spy stuff. You get to, if you ever get to do a physical pen test. I have a camera, a photographer, and I have her come with me on pen tests, because we go look for open windows and see what we can see from computer screens from across the way with a telephoto lens. And I mean, that's low tech. We're just grabbing screenshots with a with a telephoto lens, and we're just stealing their data that way. And so just putting a privacy screen on your computer monitor, is a recommendation that we come across, but we get to do those kind of fun things like that. So yeah, it just really depends.
It might be worth pointing out the difference between red team and penetration testing too. Sean, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, actually, when I asked that question in the forum, you kind of gave that fantastic explanation of it. And so for pen testing, right, you're looking to penetrate the perimeter of an external network or an internal network. And if you've ever seen internal network that's segmented by firewalls, you have the user VLAN, and then you maybe have a printer VLAN, or you have the management VLAN, or things like that. And as you work to kind of penetrate the different perimeters of that network, you're testing those vulnerabilities, testing those exploits if you can find them. Red teaming involves pen testing, but it's only a small piece of the entire red team operation. The red team operation can be things like open source intel, stealing somebody's badge at a coffee shop, or cloning a key to a door, or using some of these like break-in tactics where you're literally trying to do everything you can to get into an organization, disrupt the organization, and defeat the blue team. And so you want to get as much intel, you want to get root, you want to get access to as many things that you're not allowed to, and take over essentially the organization in ways that they just can't even imagine. Sticking pineapples above projectors in a conference room that is now the loudest beacon in a Wi-Fi network, but it's a man in the middle, and you're SSL stripping, and just so many different kind of cool things that you can do as a red teamer. So you get to kind of be a spy. Lockpicking.
Yeah, I mean, I would say if in a nutshell, red team tries to be more of a simulation of what might be a real offensive situation, where they might try social engineering and things related to the physical world, whereas penetration testing tends to be more scoped. You've agreed to a certain thing.
Yeah.
You still agree in red teaming, but red teaming tries to emulate the real world more. Right. I posted a link for we have a lot of articles on red teaming and penetration testing. We have a great red teaming course as well. If anyone's interested in red teaming. We have a question around, well, I saw it pop up a couple of times. Like, when are you too old for this this game? To be, I guess there's, when are you too old for cybersecurity? And then there's also, when are you too old for I guess, penetration testing and OSCP? To put my spin on this, I would say that OSCP penetration testing, it's the higher end of techie studying. So it's a longer journey than it might be if you're going to be an auditor or a SOC analyst. So if you're wanting to get into a job sooner rather than later, then you want to do something where the gap between you and that job is smaller. So on a lot of people's roadmaps, as part of the mentorship we do at Station X, I talk about and give them a tool for doing a gap analysis. And that's a gap analysis between where you are now and where you want to be. And it could be, for pen testing, it's this big, it's off the camera. Whereas for something else, it's this big. So if time is a thing, then you've got to bear in mind the gap. I would just say. So yeah, Sean, what's your take on?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be 50 next year, so am I too old? So I wish I had discovered this earlier on in my career, like when I discovered Backtrack. Wish I would have put the effort into it, but it didn't matter to me when I started. It mattered how much work I put in after I discovered it. And so I was willing to put the hours in, willing to put the time in, willing to, make those sacrifices, to not go out, to not, go out and hang out with friends. As I've got to focus, I've got to study, I've got to make this a part of my life's journey. And so that choice really is an individual choice. And if you can understand technological concepts, I saw a person in here has 24 years of experience. And to be a SOC analyst, if you can understand technological concepts and you know how to read, IT kind of output formats, Splunk and things like that, and those Wireshark PCAPs and all that stuff, then go for it. Like put the work in and make that what you want to do. You're competing obviously in the younger market, but a lot of the younger market, they don't have the experience that somebody with 24 years. That was really invaluable to me, is having all of that time understanding voice and structured cabling and networking. All of that really played into the well-rounded background that I have. So 24 years, that's early. So
we haven't discussed the negatives of penetration testing or hacking. Because obviously a lot of people are interested in OSCP because of the career thing, really. So what are your thoughts on, the reasons not to go down the offensive route, the downsides of penetration testing?
Yeah, so some of the downsides, if you don't have written permission from the organization that you are pen testing, they gave you verbal, you are risking your freedom. At the drop of a hat, they can say, whatever. So if you don't really take that serious and understand the ramifications, if you go out of scope and you end up pen testing something that maybe that organization uses, but it's not their resource, they just redirect to it, or you end up doing something that is that, there's serious implications for that, especially, if they're supply chain and government or anything like that. So there's some risks to it. Also, I saw a question pop through here earlier, the difference between black hat, white hat, gray hat. And as a white hat hacker, you have to understand a lot of the things that the bad guys are doing. And some of the things the bad guys are doing, they're not fully developed, publicly available exploits and things like that. They're 0 days. And so if you're not able to understand and maybe kind of peek into the black world, to get familiar with some of these tactics, so you may get exposed to some just horrible, terrible things, terrible groups, terrible organizations. There's all different kinds of criminal people out there that are looking to corrupt other people, and money sometimes can lure people away. And if you are easily lured by that enticement, this may not be the field, because if your ethics can be that corrupted that easily, it could cost you your freedom or even your life in some cases. So.
Yeah. So from my point of view, so from a practical career perspective, hacking is something that a lot of people like the idea of. And because of that, there's a lot of interest in it. So from a purely practical point of view, it's more difficult to get into penetration testing than it might be another field that could be, quite easy to walk into.
Yeah, it's barrier of entry for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Like doctors down to the same kind of barrier.
Yeah, it's
for sure.
It's also a lot of time can be done remotely, so therefore you've got an international competitive environment. That's also a plus, because it means you can also get work all over the place, but you're also competing against others all over the place. I would say as well that people tend to shift out of penetration testing at a certain point, generally to do more managerial, like managing the team, or it's something that people rarely do people stay just doing penetration testing all the time. And penetration testing generally is about specialization. So, when I'm looking to, so StationX does services. So when we're looking to do some sort of work for a client, we need an expert in that particular area. So maybe it's mobile pen testing. Someone who knows mobile pen testing may not know AWS and infrastructure so well. Yep. But some people were really better at web app. So even within the area of penetration testing, it's that there's more that can be done and focused. Think of OSCP as almost like a black belt in jiu-jitsu. So it's like your stuff, but you're still at the beginning of your journey. Right. Maybe other people don't do martial arts, so they don't quite understand the reference. But still, when you have your black belt, you're still at the beginning, if you like, of being good. Right. And that's a little bit like the OSCP. And for many people, it may not be necessary to go so hardcore. If your goal is just to have a better job than what you've got now, to do something more interesting, etc. So I would just throw those things in there. But for many, it can be interesting, So that can be the motivation. I would also say you must have an interest in this, and that's generally the same for any cybersecurity role. You need to have a passion and interest in it, because there's no way you can do this if it isn't of interest to you.
Yeah, that dopamine hit you get when you get root makes all of it worth it. Like when the drudging through the enumeration, the fact that once you got root, now you got to write this report. Yeah, definitely that doesn't last. You have to have that real like joy and desire to be in this field. That will only take you so far.
Definitely. Jacob, how are you doing? Is cloud pen testing a specialization too? Well, it is, yeah. But so what tends to happen is you'll have a job, and cloud inevitably is part of that. And sometimes you get people who are more aware of the cloud stuff, and other people who might be more aware of the web stuff. So yeah, you could specialize in that, but you probably know some other things as well. Because cloud in itself, if you think about it, there's all those providers. There's the three main, obviously, Azure, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and there's a whole bunch of others, Alibaba, and all. So that's three different. You might just specialize in one of them. There's a lot. There's a lot out there for.
We can make a whole career out of that. Just being AWS or Azure.
Yep.
Yep.
Indeed. Yeah. So Sean, I don't know. So we've run over a little bit because we tend to sort of answer questions, but we can answer a few more if you like. I don't know how you are for time.
I'm good. I don't want to keep if anybody was, but yeah. So there's another one that popped in. Another one about the roadmap. About my lab setup, it was just a virtual. Actually, I used VirtualBox and VMware. My Kali machine was in VMware, and my Windows machines were in VirtualBox. I just found that I had issues with Windows and saving snapshots in VMware and Kali. So anyway, let's see. You answered the roadmap question. I would definitely get some Windows. This is Mohammedou's question: Windows, Linux, and Python understanding. You don't have to be an expert, but be very familiar with it. How hard is it to switch from a developer role to a role in cyber? So developer role, you're going to understand coding, front end, middleware, things like that. So that will give you a little bit of an advantage in the programmatic piece, but it may not help you from a networking perspective. It may not help you understand operating system, things like that. You may be great at kernel, or you may be great at, that type of stuff. But definitely want to have that wide range of experience. So
developers look at application security and DevSecOps, because your development skills will be more directly applicable for DevSecOps or in particular application security. Yeah, people mention labs. So if you look in our lab section on Station X, we've got our lab workbook. So you can create those labs using VMware and VirtualBox, etc.
Here's a question Nathan probably can answer. It's, can you train people remotely for the OSCP? And if so, how much? So
we are creating a course right now, actually, Station X, which is a live training course. So yeah, so what we are doing with that course is taking all of the tests that we've done and creating a training that is actually an emulation of a real pen test. So that would include all of the stuff like you need to deal with a customer, scoping, the things that aren't quite on OSCP, and also importantly things like we need to learn this technology, so we've got to use this particular tool to learn it, but actually in the real world we're going to use this tool.
Yeah.
Because in the real world there's a difference, you see, because so we wanted a course where, because what happens is when you what some pen testing companies have, they have their own kind of internal programs of where they try to get their own pen testers up to speed. So, and generally what they do is they create pretty much a pen test. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to put together a live training that is essentially a replica of a whole bunch of pen tests we've done. And you'll have to produce a report. So essentially, you'll have to do a pen test, but as part of that, you'll get the learning as well. But forsaking that, then obviously there's courses, there's labs, there's lab books on Station X. We've got our blog. If you have no money, there's things on there. So yeah, there's plenty of resources.
Yep. Do we need to take the Microsoft certification first? I'm not Microsoft certified. I'm just way more familiar with Microsoft than I was when I initially started my journey. So I don't hold any Microsoft certifications, but I can definitely break into and elevate privileges of Microsoft. So
yeah, you don't need the cert. You just need the knowledge of the operating systems, but you don't necessarily need the cert. Someone was asking about OSCE3.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if people have seen this page that we've got. So, I mean, we've got an absolute ton of resources on the blog, and also, so this thing that you won't be able to see, but if you just cybersecurity certificate landscape, or it's within our environment. This is the certificate landscape for cybersecurity. You can see there's about 500 certificates in it. So it was just mentioned this one here. and he was sort of saying, is this is this going to set you up? Yeah. So I mean, that's a fairly well recognized certification that not many people have. Anyway, the point of this: the higher up it is, the more advanced it is. The lower down, obviously, less advanced, and then it's put into different sections. So that's a resource that you can perhaps have a look at. But the point of that is that you don't need to do 500 certificates.
Yeah.
There's just maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 that you might want to do specifically for where you're trying to get to.
That OSC3, that's the combination of the OSCP, OSEP, and the the malware developer. So you take those three, you combine it, and you sit for that. And the courses, they go up in difficulty. So the OSCP is 24 hours with 24 hours for reporting. The OSEP is 48 hours with 48 hours for reporting. And then the other one is malware, exploit development, and all that stuff. So yeah, it's pretty impressive. And that is a very specialized focus thing. So yeah, but
yeah, I think we'll answer a couple more questions, and then we'll have to call it. But if you have more questions, then just jump into the hacking focus group and pop them in there. So Sean, you see any? Apologies, we can never answer all the questions.
Yeah, there's so many questions coming in. Yeah. What do you think the biggest reason why people fail an exam like OSCP, CPTS, etc.? Bad notes, for sure. Bad notes is a reason. Lack of knowledge, for sure, is a reason. Lack of persistence. You give up too soon, and you may have been right there. You just, you got exhausted. I did see a question earlier running through the chat, and this question made me think of that. Yes, you can take bathroom breaks. Yes, you can go to sleep. Yes, you can break to eat while you're taking these exams, for sure. Matter of fact, I would highly encourage you to make that part of your exam regimen anyway. I did not sit awake for 24 hours and hack. I actually slept for 8 hours, which some people were like, what? But once I understood what the course was asking, once I understood what the exam was going to demand of me, I actually planned it. And you can search out there. There's actually people that have put their kind of timetable publicly available. They did it anonymously so they don't get in trouble, but you can actually see how to plan your exam. So, and I would definitely do it because I did it all 4 times. So I took the rest. So, and then when I remember on my fourth, my final, when I got it, I remember dreaming about a solution, and I woke up and I went downstairs and I was like, oh, how could I have missed that? So, and there it was. Yeah. So it was wild. So I wouldn't say it was fortuitous, but it was just, pretty cool. So, yeah, but that's, bad reporting for sure. You can fail for not reporting properly. If you miss something obvious, you will fail. You'll fail the exam in the report. So, and do you see there is a huge gap between pen tester experience, 2-year, 5-year? For sure. My senior pen tester, he has his OSCP, OSWP, his OSEP. He has the GIAC. He's got a bunch of CompTIA certifications as well. And 2 years ago, he was a junior pen tester. Now he's a senior pen tester. And so the things that I can see, I watch him do is just mind-boggling. So, and that's just a 2-year. Now in 5 years, he's just going to be even better because this is all he does all day long. He enumerates, he discovers, he takes notes, and then he goes after the exploits. And so he's very familiar with it. It just becomes a rhythm. Nobody was good at it the first time they did it. You just get better and better and better. So I definitely do see a significant difference between a 2-year person and a 5-year person. So.
Paul's asked, does StationX advise on student strengths and make any suggestions? Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the first things that we're doing for you is evaluating where you are. We have well, it depends on the tier that you're on. We have this a video consultation process so that we can essentially tell you what you need to do. So, yeah, I think that's generally, well, so more personalized education tends to produce better outcomes. Well, it produces a lot better outcomes, actually, because the majority of people actually just get courses and do nothing with them. And that's the problem we try to overcome at StationX. by having more of this sort of community stuff and our mastermind groups and things like that. So yeah, it is important to be advised on your strengths. And sometimes people's strengths are things that they may not have recognized in themselves. Communication skills, for one, is a big one that people don't recognize.
If you're didactic or a self-learner, some of the course material, you can flow through. But sometimes I'm kind of a bit of both. Like a lot of what I've learned is self-taught, but it really helped when I had somebody like Nathan's courses coaching me through difficult concepts. And then I could rewind it and play it again and listen to that kind of thing. And now literally having access to, an expert like him and his coaches to just kind of explain things and work through those types of things, that's just invaluable. It's a mentor-mentee relationship, and you can't really put a price on that kind of, it's like the trades, nobody learned how to be an electrician by accident.
Yeah, I would recommend 3 things, actually. So I would recommend people have a mentor. I would recommend that you have a team around you of peers, and I would recommend that you mentor someone yourself. Those 3 are a real help in moving you forward. And it doesn't matter also how junior you are. There's always someone that needs a little bit of support yourself. And helping others, teaching others really helps you and your own retention. So if you can have that 3-tier structure, highly recommended. All right. So look, there was a lot of other questions I wanted to answer, but look, come on our focus group, and we're there. So pop the questions in there. So I know someone sort of said something about speaking to Sean. Sean is in the focus group, so drop him a message in there, or drop us a message in there.
I started getting some LinkedIn requests too. So yeah, my LinkedIn's open for connections, and if you're in the US, I post all kinds of things. You'll see, go to our YouTube page. It's at ArcCyber. There's no E in ArcCyber. It's just ARKCYBR. Like and subscribe. Help grow that, share that. But yeah, you can find all that stuff there. So connect with us.
All right, guys. We'll have to get off. I've popped a few URLs in here for you. But yeah, our blog as well is useful. All right. Have a good rest of the morning or evening or afternoon or whatever it happens to be. And yep, it's been a pleasure, everybody. And yeah, Sean, I'll chat to you in a bit. We've got other stuff to chat about, haven't we? So let's reconvene on that as well.
Sounds great.
All right, guys. Catch you later. Let's see if the technology actually will work to switch off. If I'm still here in an hour, there's a problem.
Love it.
All right, guys. Catch you later.